Hey, if I can get everybody's attention.
No, not for a little while.
It'll keep you warm.
We'll just put it on the
Okay.
while,
Then you'll get warm. Thank you.
if I can get everybody's
It's all
attention.
on the big phone.
Thank you so much, and I really want to thank all of you. This is an amazing turnout, much better than I had anticipated for Klamath County, so yay for us. So, this is Jared. He was driven over from Jackson County to be able to help you know a little something on the ground from a farmer's perspective. He's Republican. He's conservative. He's very typical of the kind of people that we have in our county. And so I'm just gonna let Jared speak as to why he's here, what he's done, and why he's done it, and then we'll take questions from you, okay? And I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand and we'll call on you so that we don't have too many people speaking out at once. So,
Well, first of all, I was born here in Klamath Falls, so, you know, my family's been in Southern Oregon since the early 1840s. And farming in all three counties, Josephine, Jackson, and Klamath County, also in Northern California, so long time farming history in my family. And from a farmer's perspective is what I really want to cover today is just the lies that you guys will see if you go canvassing or if you do phone banking is like this right here. They're saying it's going to affect farmers as far as it's going to be costly for keeping the product separate coming out of the fields. Well, as a farmer, we're businessmen. I mean, that's primary. We're out there to make money. And we know what we plant, we know where we plant it, we know when we plant it, we know when we fertilize it, when we spray it, everything. I'm not an organic farmer, I'm primarily conventional. We are sustainable is what I would call it because I only put a pesticide down when I reach that economic threshold. I've sprayed one pesticide in the last 4 years. And so that's the big key. And one of the things is they're saying it's about the organic industry. It's not about organic. I don't see it. Organic is better. I mean, that standard is far superior as food goes. But that's one thing with Klamath County is a hard county to say, well, we need to help with organic. Don't want to do that here. That's one thing we ran into in Jackson County is you will put off people saying, well, that's a hippie thing. You don't want to do that. It's just GMO, non-GMO. But as far as we getting back to the farmers go, it's like recently the Warden Elevator last year was bought out by a cooperative of farmers in Wisconsin. And so we have a facility here that they are primarily organic, and that's why they bought it is because of the burgeoning opportunities of organics here in the basin. And there's lots of farmers here that are switching to organic. And we already know this is GMO seed, this is conventional seed, this is organic seed. We know what we're doing. We know when we harvest it where it goes. We always clean our equipment out in between fields. We already have the systems for labeling in place. They were there for a decade. I mean, when organic hit, they've already been here. Everything that you see in these things is a lie. And what you'll see is the people behind it back here, guess where their funding comes from? Biotech. That's why I'm not a member of Oregon Farm Bureau anymore. 38% comes from biotech. That's not right. The industry is trying to control farmers. And then through that, they're trying to control everybody through food. That's all it's about. They want to control us as public. And the farmers, getting to know your farmers is a big thing. And we have lots of farmers here in the valley that are in the basin that are going that way. You know, I'm not over here every day, so I don't see it, but all my family's here. And just from the way that they get stuff from local places is that, you know, it's coming up and the world is switching to it because the world is finding out. And it's like, you know, I have a newborn son and he's a month and a couple days old. In formula, you look on that, unless it's organic, you know, you don't know what's in it, and they all have soy in it. And so that's one thing that's scary. Well, you get that same formula that we have here in the US that's labeled South Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, parts of South America. They know what they're eating. We don't. I mean, that's not right.
It's just so absurd.
And I mean, like she said, I'm as a conservative Republican, I was a proponent to GMOs 4 years ago. We got on the bandwagon of the Roundup Ready alfalfa when it was approved in 2011, and we started planting it immediately. I mean, we had the seed within a few weeks after it came out. And we did not see the benefits that they said that we were going to. And about a year after that, in 2012, I got really sick one day. We were working 2 in the morning. One of the guys goes and gets a bunch of food for everybody from McDonald's, horrible place, never eat there. It's 2 in the morning, we were hungry. So I had a soda. I don't drink soda. I got horribly, deathly sick, and my dad had my wife give me 7-Up. Same thing, because it usually calms an upset stomach. Well, it kept getting worse and worse and worse, so they brought me over here to Sky Lakes, and finally going through the nuclear medicine and everything, they figured out, well, you got something wrong with the gastrointestinal system. I'm like, well, I don't have a history of it in my family. And so they gave me distilled water, because all the, like the Pedialyte and that stuff, all has those corn sugars in it. And so that got me better, and then after a month of testing over in Medford from staying away from pretty much anything that had refined sugar in it at all, they narrowed it down to fructose. And that's what got me into it, is finding out, well, why is it the fructose, but I can go eat an apple, doesn't bother me, because fructose naturally occurs all over the place. And so, you know, looked into it a whole bunch, just come to find all the lies and deceit that the industry is doing just to promote something that they have so that they can make a buck. And, you know, we find that that's not right. And then, you know, as a farmer, I got rid of almost all of my GMO crops before the ban passed in Jackson County. We'll have the rest of them gone before it's enacted next year. And just doing that, it opens up lots of windows that you would never see before. I mean, good and bad. And I've had lots of farmers since the ban happened that are over here. You would never guess the number of farmers down here in Merrill and Malin that conservative, right-wing Republican as I am, and they are growing organic. They're afraid to tell people, but that they're slowly coming out and letting other people know that.
Well, they can get more money, right?
Well, hold on. Hold
No,
on.
that's fine.
Is it?
Yeah, there is more money in it. It's like with organic barley, right? Barley is hard to find organic. They are importing it to Wisconsin from Oregon because they can't get it. And so that price premium is double, even triple. And same thing with organic alfalfa, because 90% of the alfalfa here in the basin is going to be that Roundup Ready alfalfa. That we were seeing, when I still had organic alfalfa left, we were seeing $4.50 a ton for it out of our barns, and we were selling conventional for $2.70. And it's it's growing even more and more like that. But that's not the reason why. It's just because so many people are seeing the lies and deceit that the industry's putting out. And that's why I call it biotech. They call it big ag. Monsanto's never been in agriculture. They're in chemicals. The only reason they developed this stuff was to sell chemicals. And it's like the Roundup Ready alfalfa. It's a DNA from a bacterium they found in the toxic waste dump behind the laboratory that they shot into the DNA of the alfalfa to make it resistant. They didn't tell us that when they sold it. They told us, well, we had all these different strains. We put them all out in the field. We sprayed them all. These ones lived, so we crossbred them as hybrids. And just more and more I looked into it, the more and more you find all these lies. And then it's like the doctor said in the video, it's everything that's out there, 99% of GMOs are for spraying with chemicals. It's a chemical, it's a production system, not a food production system.
Right.
But like, I don't
Understand why you say that the farmers here who are organic will not tell others?
There's a stigma behind it that you're a hippie, you're a liberal. And it's hard to believe and it's laughable, but that's the way it is.
But can they be explained? Most of them are Christian, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
that God did not intend those organisms to be different from.
But they're
the
still
way
looked
they
at as liberal, as a hippie, and they don't want that. They don't want that stigma.
Jared,
Do you want to just call
Yeah, yeah. You went up first.
I would just like to say that I represent the Inupiat tribes in Alaska and the Eskimo. And I would just like to say that one way I talk to the elders that I meet, tribal elders, is that I tell them our ancestors did not eat GMO.
Yeah.
So that like opens up the conversation.
So the two commercials that are currently inundating our television stations, I believe it's the same guy. that
Yeah, I
you
haven't
have
seen
in
him.
the
I don't watch
back.
TV.
It's him and a female, and so I'm wondering, where is the counter voice, and what needs to happen for you to make a commercial?
I have two commercials that are going through Portland and Salem right now, and they just hit Medford yesterday.
Good.
So they will be around because we have the same TV stations.
Okay.
But it's just the money is not there.
Great.
Yeah, I have a comment about that. I got an email today that they have $7 million plus, and they're gonna buy a whole new block of ads. We're not going to have enough money to counter their ads. What we can do is call people on the telephone. That is the primary activity that the campaign is going to undertake. And here are some forms where you can sign up to get involved. I'm kind of aware of how that's going to work, is that you go on your computer, you get on a website, and it makes calls. You don't have to pay for them if it's long distance, because it's done through
Through the internet.
the internet, right. I don't totally understand it, but that is the way that we're going to win this election, is contacting people and talking to them.
Big thing is talking to them in person. People hate to be called.
Yeah.
I don't have a home phone for that reason. I don't want marketing calls. Canvassing is probably the #1 thing that happened in Jackson County that helped, is because they were seeing their neighbors out on the street, coming to their doors, talking to them about something that affected everybody locally. And I brought over a whole bunch of these little flyers. You can just take a stack of them, just, for an hour, go downtown, or if you're a college student or something, just talk to them. There's a lot of information in here, and they're more apt to listen to you than they will to somebody they see on TV or hear on the radio.
What a few of us are doing is just taking some of the information we're gonna have available to you and standing in front of the post office downtown, or if you're in the Merrill post office, or wherever you're willing to stand, and just talk to folks as they're coming in and out of the post office. Because several of us were there for about an hour and a half the other day, and we talked to quite a few people who were coming in and out of the post office. So that you can do whenever you have the time. You don't have to arrange it with anybody. You have to have a computer, no technology. You have a question of that?
Yeah.
There is a stigma among the farmers and anybody else about organic farming, but if you just drive around the community, you can see a lot of signs. This is an organic farm, don't spray there. And I know personally, I don't know, 50,000 acres of good irrigated cropland in the Klamath project, and starting from Running Y all the way down to Tule Lake. There's probably a lot more than that are certified organic producers.
Yes.
But there's still that stigma. I'm not saying that is obvious.
Yeah, and then one.
But I want you to take heart. There's a reason for that. It isn't just economic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then one thing that they say is organic will not feed the world. That is false. That's completely false. One of the United States' largest organic farms is based in Corvallis, in Medford, right across the street from some property that we lease, is a 1,200-acre plot that they grow corn and sugar beets and everything on. They exceed every conventional farmer in Jackson County by at least 10% on their production levels. I mean, they get 4.5 ton per acre wheat on dry land. That's, average, if not above average for over here for what I saw when I was growing up working at Alturas Ranches. And that's more than I get on my conventional land, and it's because of the sustainable practices. It's not so much organic, but because you have that system where the soil is taking care of your plants. Without the soil, all you have is chemicals.
Question over there.
Maybe the basis behind organic will not feed the world is that organic food is perceived as more expensive and most of the world is poor.
Yes, and that's the number one reason why the world doesn't see food like everywhere is because it's not there. It's because they don't have the money to get it, and it's like they said is a lot of you I'm sure have gardens. If you go to your garden, say you've got a bell pepper plant, you'll see a lot of them get sunburned. If it's a major producer, they throw those away. 40% of food produced for human consumption is thrown away, just because it doesn't
look good.
It's not perfect. She's had her hand up.
I wanted to share something. John and I farm, and we have had grown organically, but country companies financial, which most of you know is a lot of farmers are insured by them. If you're a member, if you have insurance through them, you have to be a member of the Farm Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
So which means whether you want to or not, you have to mail a check to the Farm Bureau for $100. And we started getting the magazines from there, and I said, well, they're sleeping with Monsanto, and we're no longer with Country Financial.
There you go.
But on top of that, Country Financial will not insure you if you're a raw milk producer either.
Yeah,
If you're a raw milk
we had to find a new insurance company. I think it's let's find it here real quick. Got to figure out which account it's under.
I'd like to say something then while he's looking for that. My name's Perry McDaniel. I'm the Food Security Program Coordinator for Climate, Tribal Health and Family Services. And I brought some shopping guides, the shopping guides he mentioned in the video here for anybody who doesn't already have one to go ahead and take one. So I'm just going to pass them around and let everybody take one. But I wanted to also just see a show of hands for how many people have already seen this video?
How many people what?
I've already seen this video. I've already seen Genetic Roulette before tonight.
I've seen another one.
Yeah.
So a good majority of you, it looks like.
Excellent film.
Yeah, so my point is, it seems to me like we're just preaching to the choir. And so,
Yes.
I just think that we need to get out there and get the word out by talking to people like you were saying, talk to everybody you know and take an extra shopping guide and hand it out. I find myself talking to people in the grocery store all the time, like, did you get your shopping guide? And handing them a shopping guide and just creating awareness that way, and I think that's an effective way to do it, but we got to get out there and canvas, or people just don't know about this ballot measure or how important
What about
it is.
showing this film at the Ross Raglan?
Actually,
Or the library.
I'm working with the Native Club at OIT, and I've got a classroom there, but I don't know which building or what classroom it is yet, because I was going to bring a flyer here tonight and advertise it to everybody here, because I'm going to do every Thursday night, because this is a Thursday night, it'll look like it worked for a lot of people, and we'll be showing it, or the other movie is GMO OMG. So I encourage you to, let people know about it that haven't already seen one of these videos or aren't aware, to come and bring a friend. And so we can create more awareness that way. So it'll
And
be
we have
every
lots of
Thursday.
informational flyers that we'll have all kinds of stuff here as you come out. There's some stuff that's for free, some stuff that yourself. Okay. Yeah.
Liberty Northwest is our insurance company.
So social media is another really great, social media is another really great outlet if you're on Facebook or something. Try to keep it, not confrontational. I've had 3 people message me recently asking me about the flyers they've received in the mail and wanting to know, they're confused and they're like, well, these are saying that farmers are going to be affected, and I have a chance there to reiterate why we need to vote yes. So.
Yeah, one of the things that they keep saying in the flyers too is that it's going to be a costly system for only Oregon. That's not true. Vermont is implemented in 2016, I believe. It was passed, and then there's several other states. I believe there's 3 or 4 states that have certain conditions that have to be met. Like one of the states is, well, you have to have 20 million people, population within states neighboring us, which is basically New York has to pass a labeling initiative, and then everybody from New York all the way through New England up to Maine will be labeling required. And Oregon counts as one of those states for a lot of that to happen.
What about I read that Walmart is getting into organic and GMO. So that's like, isn't Walmart like with Monsanto, you know?
They're not really in bed with Monsanto. I mean, you couldn't prove it. It could be something that's out there. I mean, they're just looking at the market is going away from them and they want to bring it back. Same thing with Safeway. And they don't have your best interests at heart. I understand it's a hard community here to get organics elsewhere. But I mean, it's like us, we have several places over in Medford that sell it, but over here it's tough. But that buying that organic stuff does help to show that, you know, that's what the people want.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, a friend of mine moved to Anderson or whatever down by Reading and was a truck driver, and he hauled Klamath Basin hay all over. He hauled, I mean, all over. It was really a desirable product. Has this GMO affected the quality and what people think of it?
A lot of the alfalfa here in the basin gets exported. It goes down to Fresno or it goes up to Eugene and gets exported out of the country.
Right.
Well, now that the Asia where that went to knows that there's GMO alfalfa, they're testing every single load that shows up at those exporters for GMO alfalfa, and they're rejecting it.
So it's really, this used to be world renowned, now it's going to be nothing.
Yep. Yeah, and it's the same thing with the wheat. I mean, like they said, the wheat was never approved for use. It was only ever tested here in Oregon back in 2000 through 2003. That affected a lot of Oregon farmers last year, and I am one of them. I had 9,600 bushels. It's 8 semi-truckloads of wheat rejected at the dock, and it had to sit at our trucking company just outside of Salem for a month and a half before somebody finally took it. And we had to pay for it every day. It sat there idle.
Well, because it had GMO in it?
Because the possibility of being GMO.
So China doesn't want it either?
Several hay producers who have
Even
been
China
organic for a considerable period of time, and they are now able to market at a premium to Asia, in addition to just going over the valley. There's a lot of milk you buy, and a lot of that, we do have the best hay.
Right.
But there's a lot of agricultural producers here in the Klamath Basin that have certified as organic so that they can take advantage of that market.
It's a great one.
It's the minerals in the soil over here, why the alfalfa is so good.
The volcanoes.
This issue with Vermont, I just read today that Nestle and Starbucks and the Grocers of America are teaming up with Monsanto to fight the labeling legislation in Vermont. And like you said, Monsanto is definitely in it for the profit, and they're chemical producers, not food producers. But these companies, Starbucks, Nestle's, those are the ones that you can really make an impact by taking your dollars elsewhere.
We have a question.
I was gonna say, I just noticed too at Sherm's today, I was just there, that there is, the organic section's growing there.
Yes, it is.
That
All
whole-
the markets.
Yeah, and
In
it's
all
like-
the markets.
Yeah,
It's
and a lot of the apple, I mean,
amazing,
there's
yes.
way more organic apples, and they've had to
Oh, good.
expand on this side.
The Allsreds are working a lot more than they ever did before with local farmers trying to get in local products, albeit organic or non-organic, just because they see that, you know, that they're helping their community even more than they were before by bringing low prices, by helping the local farmers.
Right, and then also I would have a question, so you switched, or you're switching out in the process of switching right now. So have you noticed the price either, increase or decrease? I mean, like as far as growing, because they're not your seed. If it's not your seed and you don't own the seed and you have to keep repurchasing that, I mean, do you guys anticipate the price to go down for farmers as well, since you're not buying the chemical and someone else's seed?
With the alfalfa seed cost twice as much initially. It was $200 an acre to put down GMO alfalfa. And we were supposed to see that in the back end with cheaper chemicals and less applications.
$200 more
$200 more an acre to
to
put it
buy
down.
for the seed.
Yeah, I mean, your alfalfa,
Than organic?
than conventional.
Than conventional.
Organic is
The
pretty
yeah.
close to the GMO seed as far as it's comes, because there's not, it's the supply and demand, there's no supply for it. That's what the hard part is for that organic alfalfa. But the market, it's a lot of it comes from Southern California, and a lot of the producers are increasing their output of organic seed. So
Well, why is that?
just because the demand in the market's there.
No, I mean, why does organic produce more?
It's because it's this whole system's working together. The bacteria in the soil is what makes all the natural nutrients available to the plants. And when you're working in the chemical system, like if you put anhydrous ammonia into your soil as a unit of nitrogen, well, the plants will still take that up, but the plants can't process that as efficiently as they can chicken manure. The chicken manure takes a while to break down, but it's like time release. And it's like typically with chemical fertilizer, what we would do is we would put down 100 pounds per acre, and you got like 30 units of nitrogen in that, and that's available immediately. If you put anything more down than it can use within a few days, you're wasting it. It goes up into the atmosphere. But with the organic fertilizer, we can do it in one shot. We put down 500 pounds per acre. It's a little bit more labor and a little bit more fuel up front, but you don't have those repeated applications time after time, and it's available all summer long.
But it's more nutrient, isn't it?
And yeah, it's more readily available. The plant can uptake it better, and it can process it better and utilize it
So
better.
on average, how much are you spending on chemicals then on a farmer who's farming GMOs? I mean, how much, if you're growing alfalfa, you know, Roundup Ready alfalfa, how much does it cost you? Like,
Well,
I don't know how you do it monthly.
You have to spray Roundup Ready alfalfa every cutting. So over here, that's 3 times a year you're spraying your alfalfa with Roundup, and it's about 20 bucks an acre to do that. And so you average that out over the 7-year life of the field, that adds up to quite a bit. With our organic stuff, we had to spray it once because we had a bad outbreak of fungus in it, and it was, I think it was about $48 per acre. And for the life of that field that's still producing 6 years later right now, we have not had to spray it again.
Wow.
They got 4 cuttings this year too on a lot of fields. We have a GMO field across from our
Yeah, we do
neighborhood.
6 or 7 along the valley.
Wow.
Can you talk about what it costs you to buy seed from somebody like Monsanto that's Roundup Ready versus being able to save seed from the harvest, from the crops that you're growing?
Like with alfalfa, you would never save it, but just as because our climate over here, you can't. It's not hot enough, long enough for the seed to be viable because it's such a long producing or it's gestation, such a long gestation period for that seed to become fertile. But just for instance, with the alfalfa, I mean, it's to be able to buy it, you have to be approved by them. You have to apply to them as a farmer. Once you're approved to be a farmer for them, then you have to sign 3 pages of legal contract of very, very fine print on the full legal pages. And it's astounding of what it does to you. It's we didn't know what we were getting into when the boss signed the paperwork. And I'm sure a lot of the farmers down here have never read it or even had their lawyers look at it. Once you sign that, you give away your property rights to everything you own. Even if you lease that property from somebody else, they can send whoever they want, whenever they want, and seize whatever they want. They can take your cell phone. They can take all your IRS documents, everything.
Wow.
It's in there,
Under
it's
what
happened.
conditions?
Under you sign the contract, it's in there. Once you sign that paperwork, you have given away your rights. And it's not just for you, it's for the generation after and the generation after. It's in perpetuity. They are gone. And we didn't know that. We have a property owner that we had GMO alfalfa on that we're having to deal with legally right now because once everybody found out about that, I mean, pardon my language, but shit hit the fan. They were pissed.
So
And
how did you get out?
we gave away his property rights without even knowing it because we didn't pay attention. Well, it's something we're working on.
Wow.
So you don't just stop growing GMO, you...
We eliminated the GMOs from the property, but it doesn't matter that they're gone. It's the rights were given away because when you buy that seed to plant, you have to tell them where you're planting it.
And
So
so
then if
then,
you don't buy
forever?
seed-
How come that's not on the advertising?
Yeah.
So forever they have a right to that property even though there won't be.
Uh-huh.
And when they find it on that property, they'll come back and sue you.
Yeah. And it's not like they're just sending some random person to do it. They own Blackwater. They're sending
Yeah,
people
for real.
that know what they're doing. You know, that have military training and military tactics, and they don't come in the middle of the day, knock on your door and say, hey, we're doing this. They come in the middle of the night, take whatever they want, go test it, come back and then they knock on your door with a lawyer and say, hey, we found GMOs and you're not licensed to have them right now.
I'm just so in awe of at the effort in Jackson County that you were able to do. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Well, yeah, a lot of that was people on the street. I mean, calling on the phone and canvassing. Canvassing was number one, in my opinion. I mean, they said, you know, a lot of people said, well, it wouldn't have passed without me and a couple other key people being spokesperson. But that's not what it was. It was the people out on the street, going door to door, sitting at all the, you know, the shopping centers and whatnot, having all that information available because people don't know without somebody telling them. And these little flyers. Yeah, it's, you go sit in front of Walmart for half an hour, you'll see 200 people go by. If you talk to half of them, I bet half of them are undecided. And just knowing that you're a local, they're more apt to vote your way.
Yeah, but you can't go onto private property. You can't go onto private
Yeah,
property.
how did you get to
They'll
do
kick you
it?
out.
We haven't been able to get in front of any of the grocery stores, Walmart, none of them.
It's hard to do, yeah.
permission?
Yes,
That's
we
what you
have.
call-
Well, legally.
Ask for forgiveness later.
Oh.
I've got a little to do.
I know what you're saying.
To ask
As
for
an
permission.
organization, it's gonna be a lot harder, but just as an individual, just go and do it. Don't set up a table, just go out there and stand in front
So not
of
as part
it.
of.
Worst thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna come tell you, can you please leave? Because like Ann just brought up, is we did the tractor brigade. It was 18 days to election, so we took 18 tractors out on the street. I brought in a quarter of them. And what we did is we had signs all over them. We went down Main Street in Medford at 5 miles an hour. Maybe a little bit slower. It was walking speed. As fast as somebody could walk, that is as fast as we drove. And we got a lot of publicity, and it's not illegal. Because a tractor has the right-of-way. They have the right-of-way over everything but law enforcement.
And law enforcement gave you an escort to Walmart.
And what was the opposition to that campaign?
The opposition was Jackson County Farm Bureau, Oregon Farm Bureau, and yeah, the chemical company,
Organic and Shelter.
which is a Monsanto front. It's 100% funded by Monsanto.
What is?
Oregonians for Food and Shelter.
Okay.
Yeah, real.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, you brought up Blackwater. I think they're called X3 now.
Yeah.
I have it right. And if you don't know it, it's worth knowing. They have a facility in North Carolina. They call it a training facility. They have over 4,000 acres. They now have 20 aircraft. It's just not Navy SEALs and people like that. There are people from other countries there, and they're mercenaries. They're not troops, they're mercenaries. They intend to have a training center on the West Coast and the East Coast. And I personally, you know, I'm not a conspiracy crazy guy, but I don't like it.
And who is that that's doing that?
Blackwater. Blackwater, if you look it up in the dictionary, and some of their executives must know the book too close. Blackwater is toilet water, or Blackwater is a disease. And it's an interesting name they have. But,
Well, I also don't understand why, when people see those commercials, you know, don't support labeling. I mean, who would not want to know what's in your food? I mean, how can people vote against it? I just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the world knows. Why can't we? And it's only because of politics and money.
But people buy into
And
it.
that's one of the things is the politics. A lot of people place the blame on Republican politicians. It goes hand in hand on both sides.
Yes, it does.
Hillary Clinton is huge. She is under Monsanto's thumb, big time.
Montana lawyer.
Yes, and so that's one thing. This is not political. We hate that it has to be involved this way in a campaign. We should know it without having to do it, but
It's corruption.
yeah.
Well, they're in control of the FDA.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
lobbyists in every state legislature.
Well, Agent Orange
Judges, they buy judges off?
was made by Monsanto.
Uh-huh.
It was.
They told us at the time, that stuff is so safe you can drink it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They said the same thing about PCBs and dioxin. It's not right.
Later, I go to Connecticut, dioxin was a big problem.
And DDT. I've got a farmer friend over in Medford who's dying of cancer right now from DDT, from him spraying it in the 70s. And he had a tumor the size of a basketball right here. And when they dissected it, it was, you know, I'm not a doctor, but it was where the metastasized, the DDT metastasized, and the tumor cells were laden with DDT. And he hadn't sprayed it since 1976, 77, whenever it was outlawed. And they say, well, glyphosate is, it's got a safer half-life than organic chemicals. Well, I don't know where it's their tobacco science with their own proprietary data. They said the same thing about DDT. I have property that we were going to go cricket bits on for baby food, for Gerber, and we couldn't do it. We were going to lease the property to Stallbush, the large organic farm, for them to do it. And the levels were at 500 times of the safe limit for being able to do that on a property that hadn't been sprayed since the 70s. And it's the same thing with the glyphosate. It's going to be there forever. Once you spray it, it's gone. I mean, you can't pull it back out of the soil.
So we're having a lot of anecdotes in there, and we have a lot of stories, but it's the next 3 weeks it's really important. And in part to answer your question, Monsanto and those people, they know what they're doing. And the TV ads they are running are going to persuade a lot of people. And what we have to do, canvassing on the ground, talking to people, is a whole lot better than making phone calls. You know, they say it's going to cost more. People hear that and say, well, I'm going to vote against it. And you know, we know it's a lie, but you got to hammer home that it's a lie. And they talk about, well, it's inconsistent because they're not going to talk about milk or meat. The initiative can't apply to that because under Oregon law, the Department of Agriculture regulates those, and so we can't set up a separate regulation for something that Oregon law. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things about their ads which are deliberately misleading, and we've got to talk to people and hammer home on your story and the lies of their story.
Yeah, just like you said, you can only focus on a certain thing, and that's processed foods, and that's what the law applies to, is processed foods. And then of course the salmon, because it's outright 100% genetically engineered. Right. But for like the milk and meat, you can't do that because the traceability going through every system, like you said, it's regulated, not just at the Oregon level, but the federal level. And the federal level is what dictated that it can only be done on processed meats. We can do another bill later on that goes in and says, well, the raw foods, meat, milk, cheese, those, you know, not just like as in raw milk, but as in, you know, even pasteurized milk. You can do that later on, but the big key is to hit that processed food. And that's why the campaign is going after that, is because 74% of processed food contains GMOs. You know, I'm not exact on the numbers, but you know, that's a big thing.
You know, my concern is, why would people believe us any more than they would believe the big science that's coming out of Monsanto? What can we do to be more believable?
You're local. You're the people that they live next to, that they see every day at the supermarket.
You have nothing invested in it but your health, not any money.
This is a grassroots effort put forth by the people for the people.
Yeah, you're not paid to be here.
Yeah.
I'm not paid to be here. We're doing it because it's what's right, not because we're paid to do it. Every single person on that no site is paid somehow to be there, whether it's a benefit for them being part of the Oregon Farm Bureau, because when 15-119 came in, there was a lot of people in Jackson County Farm Bureau that were against it. And Monsanto came in and Syngenta came in and says, well, we're going to pull your funding. And when 40% of your funding comes from them, they said, okay, well, you know, because they were going to be unbiased, and then they came out a couple days later and said that we're against it. And that's a lot of what it has to come down to is money on the opposition. But when it comes down to voting yes, seeing your neighbor, talking to your neighbor, that's what they're going to go for. And that's what we saw in Jackson County and even in Josephine County. Josephine County did not have money for commercials like Jackson County did. They had maybe $100,000, and that all they did was pay for flyers and go out on foot talking to people in person. Yeah, it passed by a landslide.
Wow.
It was almost 80%. It was like high 70s.
But they legally, they can't enforce it. So that's the
Yeah,
challenge.
their lawyers are working on that because
Yeah.
Monsanto came in and had the law, Senate Bill 863 passed, that prohibited counties from being able to control their own system. Well, that's the way our Constitution was founded, local government first, and then it goes, up to the big government
Well,
last.
that just shows you're a Democratic governor right there if you
Yeah.
did that.
Right.
So it's not part of it, yeah.
Well, I just want to bring it back to this measure, which is a labeling measure. And it feels like, all of the trend is moving in the right direction, and eventually we're going to get where we want to go, I think, with getting rid of them. But for the labeling, the only reason I can think that Monsanto is willing to put a lot of money and effort into fighting the labeling is because they think it's going to make a big drop in their sales.
Oh, yeah.
If their stuff is so safe and it's so good for us, they
Yeah.
should preach it loud and clear and be completely transparent with us. There's no reason to hide anything.
None at all.
Well, this reminds me of the tobacco back in the.
Definitely.
So if this major suit is filed against them and all, something can happen like in the tobacco industry where they have to, label and admit it and pay fines and.
I was in England last year and I went on a hunt and I went into a store called Asda, which is Walmart in England. And I went to every aisle I could think of that had Coke, cereal, chips, I mean, you name it, any kind of processed food, I could not find one GMO food. And they label, so they pulled GMOs out of all their food.
And it tastes better too.
And so I was so happy to see that because at first I just wanted to see a label that said GMO, but I did not see one, which made me even happier because then I knew there was no GMOs in.
Yeah, before your question real quick, I have a friend that's on a tour of Europe right now, and her mom have been looking. They cannot find them that say genetically modified ingredients because they're not there. The only GMOs that make it to Europe or that are grown in Europe are for animal feed, for livestock feed.
So they know the writing's on the wall.
In Klamath County, I suggest don't say Monsanto evil. I would, but in answer to your question, people are trying to get prescriptions, are getting prescriptions from doctors saying, don't have the GMOs, we just want the labeling to allow, and the children trying to get their, the formula that has non-GMO, they can't find it because it's not labeled, and this is, all that we're asking is to be able to say, to have the labels say that those, so that those people can properly get the food that they need for their health.
We have time for 2 more questions. Time for 2 more questions.
I got just, many folks are familiar with it. I think the world's crazy right now, really. Look up Agenda 21 on your computer if you're not familiar with it.
I thought you weren't a conspiracy theorist.
It's Agenda 21, it's a UN resolution, it's about 20-something pages. It deals with this country, Central America, Mexico, Canada. It's just something to cloud this.
Questions for the group?
Chuck, did you have a question?
No, I was just trying to get attention from my wife.
Good
Trying to
job.
draw the information, the
No, good
conversation
job.
over here.
Okay,
I have a question for the group. All of you fellow unpaid people out there like me, if you have an objection of me publishing this video on YouTube or on Facebook, let me know.
Go for it.
If you happen to show up in it,
Just the opposite.
okay. Thank you.